Let's call to order the first meeting of the board members of the Arizona Transhumanist Party, and decisions to that end. And David and I were just joking about Stark Industries shirt, which actually brings to mind a serious, although somewhat more speculative matter that I wanted to discuss, which is that the gentleman who plays Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr., is running a political campaign of sorts right now.
Really?
Which is very much a sort of e-governance oriented and pretty transhumanism oriented campaign. I think one of the things that I wanted to discuss about this meeting, aside from the things like bylaws and how often we should meet and where, was this broader concept of political organization running candidates versus doing press. An important distinction for a third-party operation. Most people looking at an operation like this tend to look at policy making and running candidates as, to some degree, secondary to orienting yourselves in a press and publicity context to try and leverage the possibility of better doing so in the future, and also just to raise awareness for the causes and policies concerned. So in the interest of doing press, I thought of Robert Downey Jr., who is doing some interesting stuff right now in this world, and if anybody has any brainstorm at any point about some expert or interested party, or certainly a well-known figure who would want to talk on our podcast or take any interest at all in the organization, please give them my number. Let them know that it's, for all of us, I think, an open door policy, and we can always be brainstorming along these lines. Let's see. Let's try and call Anthony. There's a very real chance that he's taking a nap.
That actually sounds like a marvelous idea.
Yes, naps are awesome.
It's hot enough.
I'm a power napper.
If Susan has her eyes closed, she's not asleep, she's power napping.
Uploading.
Uploading.
Let's see which one is this. Well, while we're on the discussion, let's see if you see.
Hello?
Hi, Mr. Anthony.
Yeah.
How are you?
Oh, waking up.
I said I hope I didn't wake you up. I'm here with Susan and David and Stacy, and we're ready to go over some of our board meeting discussions.
Hi, Anthony.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Okay. So a moment ago, I brought up this possibility of a meeting at another location, perhaps, and how often we would be able to meet. I am open to meeting quite frequently. So if we wanted to make this, if we voted to make this a monthly meeting, if we voted to make this a weekly meeting, I would be open to either. And do you have thoughts on the subject, Anthony?
Well, I think monthly is probably more de rigueur as far as operations like this go. I apologize to everybody. I work nights at the moment. State
And you are transitioning to a second shift or kind of daylight hours, right? In the next few weeks.
In the next few months, but yes, hopefully.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you need to step out, by all means, just feel free to end the call.
No, this is about the time I usually wake up. You're just getting fresh morning meat.
Nice. Makes me want some coffee.
Would we differentiate between maybe board member meetings and general meetings as far as frequency?
Yeah. Okay. That's a good idea. So, Anthony, we could have a more regular board member meeting, and then monthly a public meeting. That might be a good compromise. So all of the voters here, would you be open to a weekly or bi-weekly meeting? Stacy, you said that you would be open to a weekly. Would you prefer bi-weekly or week?
I would prefer bi-weekly.
Okay. Let's.
I concur. Bi-weekly sounds manageable.
Okay. Should we do a straw poll, or do we want to decide to maybe meet every 2 weeks for board members, and every month for public meetings?
I would second that if that's a motion.
Yes, that's okay. Okay, the motion carries. All right. Okay, and let's see. So we do have a name, and this is a meeting of the Arizona Transhumanist Party, and we have a few other roles that we want to discuss. I mentioned PR concepts generally a few moments ago. We might discuss a PR person. There's a few people in these roles. California has an operation that has a few PR team. USTP has a PR person who I just spoke to today, Tom Ross. So we want to be thinking as much as possible in terms of PR ourselves, and we might want to see who we want to be become our PR officer. So the other roles that we wanted to discuss, we have an acting secretary, Stacy, who is very, very busy right now. And we also we do have a little more progress in an acting treasurer, and I had wanted to move that we make David our treasurer for the Arizona Transhumanist Party. Does anyone second?
Aye.
Aye. All right. I believe. What do you say, Anthony?
I defer to your judgment on that one. I don't.
All right, the motion carries. Excellent. Okay, we're going through our to-do list, which is good. That means we can talk about fun stuff.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Let's see. I was just reading about the concept of the Overton window, which I think fits in with what we were just talking about a little bit about running candidates versus doing press, running candidates in policy versus doing press. The Overton window is the idea that every society or cultural institution has a specific framing that it finds suitable for discourse, political discourse. It's pretty specific to a political discourse, and it's something that any third party has to consider and strategize accordingly. It's why generally parties of this kind tend to work on doing press. Also, it's just a lot more bang for your buck, so to speak. You can get exposure and have conversations in a more naturalistic way than if you're trying to run policy stuff. And it's one thing that Gennady has really accomplished as the head of this organization is a few particular policy goals in his jurisdiction. And
If I,
yeah, go ahead.
if I may contribute, I can tell you that after having served on my kids' school board for a couple of their semesters, I can tell you I was dreading the standard town hall sort of format. So I'm glad to hear that we're going to be able to actually have conversations and then move those into the propriety rather than just ayes, nays, minutes, gavels.
Yeah, as our organization,
I do not yield, parlay, blah, blah, blah.
as the board organization grows, we will may necessarily have to adhere more to that. But there's no point in doing that at this juncture, in my view.
Let's not stifle innovation with bureaucracy just yet. We'll save that for the national level.
Yeah. Excellent. Another thought that I had about the USTP and Arizona USTP is the possibility of, it's a little more speculative in the way that the sort of Robert Downey Jr. Doing press with Robert Downey Jr. would be a little more speculative, but stranger things have certainly happened, even just in the course of these last few months. But the other thing is maybe uncontested local races. A lot of times people running in local races are not partisan individuals. They're often running as independents, and often the things that they are involved with is it's not really partisan in any way. We should be on the lookout for these kind of races and maybe try and reach out to these people, or maybe consider running candidates in uncontested races. It would be a nice thing to start to see transhumanists in more and more races.
I like that strategy quite a bit. It's exposure
Yes.
and it's education, and that's going to be key. I mean, we all understand, I think, looking around you guys in my mind's eye, that we're at the nascent stretch of the venture. So shenanigans like throwing a candidate in, let's say, Mesa Unified School District or whatever, is super advantageous. It gets the word out there, it gets the phrasing, the thought processes out there. You know,
That's cool. Yeah. I might have to edit around about 5 seconds of what you said because I just adjusted the camera. But honestly, I'm not 100% sure that your voice even picking up on that mic. We had a similar issue just in the last few days about that, and I want to apologize to you again, Anthony, for the other night. I was very tired.
That's all right.
We tried to have another go at it, and I kind of crapped out. So again,
You're talking about the interview, right?
yeah, I'm talking about the podcast. Yeah, the podcast that we recorded, which is posted on the Arizona Transhumanist Party site. I haven't shared it to other media yet for this reason of these technical difficulties. But we are going to be working on another one, which is a second and a third. We have a third one written now too, but a second futurist New Deal podcast, which relates to the concept of citizen science from a staunch techno-optimist position and playing the devil's advocates, Stacy NG, talking and also talking about it in her role as biologist. That should be fun. And anytime you want to record another one, anyone, please let me know if you have a subject. I am available. It's better. I don't want to get into this technical stuff, but it's better if we use this one website to coordinate 2 different audio tracks, or sync up our watches with separate audio tracks on our phones. Or we can also just for those of us in Phoenix, just meet and talk into the same microphone. That's actually.
I'll be far more travel available by the end of this summer.
Oh.
But also, are you referring to the Zencaster?
Right, Zencaster.
Program
Thank
that
you.
we found?
Yeah.
Okay.
Which there's a few other options along these lines. The Zencaster that we were looking at using is optimized for 2 tracks. Unless we want to start paying for stuff, we can start paying for everything. But so two people. But it would be nice to be able to have podcasts with a few different people in areas of expertise or interest interacting as well.
Yeah, it seems like no matter what software you use for that, getting the audio levels balanced between people in different places is tough.
Yeah, and we thought we had it knocked out, but something came up. It was the first time we'd done it in a while, so. Yeah. I'm wondering, I didn't look at it just within the last hour, I'm wondering if anybody had any comments on the site yet. I know a couple of people. Okay, well, you don't have to at this moment, but yeah, let me know.
I'll see if we're getting progress on it.
So we one of the core values of the Futurist New Deal and of this organization is an interest in legislation and methods moving us towards fluid democracy. A fuller representation, but also in many ways more decentralized power structure. The blockchain, secured voting that we were advocating for. I was talking to somebody that I've known for a little while on Facebook, named Maureen, and she's actually joined our group. But just today we were talking about the pros and cons of e-voting. She feels that paper ballots are a necessary stopgap in the short term, and that e-voting in 2020 might not be feasible. But as we all know, this is largely an advocacy organization. The function of the Futurist New Deal is principally to be having these kinds of conversations and be getting people to talk about a specific set of technological skills.
I'm gonna have to come back to you guys.
Okay. Call this number when you're ready.
Red button.
I'm just going to take him off speaker. I don't think he has to hang up. He's just got a dog thing. All right. I don't know if we really wanted to go through bylaws and things. I think we got into the main business that I did want to discuss. Does anyone have other organizational concerns or practical concerns of this kind?
Well, just coming up to speed, you did mention the bylaws. So, are there bylaws drafted, or are they? Where are they? Where's that at?
I have boilerplate stuff.
Okay, right.
But we haven't. I wasn't prepared to go over it. But I can be for our next meeting.
Yeah, generally that's a discussion item of its own, or a focal point of its own.
That we would ultimately be wanting to make, like if this is a dues collecting organization, which I'm inclined to not make it a dues collecting organization, or if it becomes in any way a dues collecting organization, to allow the sort of monthly public people almost the same access as any person who opted to pay dues.
Yeah, the U.S. Transhumanist Party advertises, join for free, it'll always
Yes.
be free. That's probably a good thing to do, and maybe we look at other ways to bring in money that we need to do.
Exactly. That's my feeling. And but it would be, I think it would be a little silly if we ignored this. And also, I don't want to until this primary is over. I don't want to. And I wouldn't want to change anything like that or add anything like that.
Mm.
Let's see. We covered our main parliamentary stuff that we wanted to get out of the way, and we're going to put a pin in the bylaws until I bring my other device and pull up those where we can have a lengthier discussion. We did want to talk about location. It's possible as we're bringing in more members that people would be more comfortable meeting up towards Scottsdale or Glendale or.
I was actually, if I can jump in real quick.
Yes, please.
I was actually thinking a lot about that. You had mentioned when we were talking. We've got people in Tucson. We've got people in Phoenix. We've got people in Northern Arizona. I didn't intend to, and I'm not going to take credit for it, but reaching out to some of my local friends up here, I find that I'm actually cultivating a little bit of a Northern Arizona chapter as well. So I think what we should just do is organize it as here's the Arizona branch of the United States Transhumanist Party, and these are our chapters. We have a Tucson chapter, a Phoenix chapter, and a Northern Arizona chapter, and just let those grow.
Excellent. And if you start having meetings and want to give me a call, feel free in this way or any.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we would accomplish that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2019. We have technology at our fingertips.
Yeah.
We can integrate the various meetings to make it easier on people. But like I said, I will be a lot more travel available at the end of the summer, and then I can pick you and your e-bike up, and we can go.
Excellent.
We'll fit in the trunk of a Volkswagen there.
Yeah, and this kind of bleeds into conversations that we've had about this presidential campaign. And it's not entirely clear to me what the prospects of, I haven't quite decided on how we're going to do actual touring. It's largely been a virtual campaign, and in the off chance that that this becomes a national campaign, I'd certainly like to. I definitely like to go on a road trip with you, buddy. What was I just gonna? Well, I think we should maybe just go ahead and establish a Facebook group for a Flagstaff Transhumanist Party chapter.
I would stick with just keeping everybody on the web page for now, but always be prepared to branch out.
Well, it doesn't reflect poorly on the membership or organizing of this group to try to move more formally to establishing that group, and definitely just the act of establishing the Facebook group certainly opened up a lot of new avenues for all of us. So maybe I would say try and keep maybe let's give it some thought at least.
Sounds like a plan. I don't want to dismiss it at all. I just don't want to complicate things too early on, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, that's fair. But I think just having the Tucson and certainly the Flagstaff group that we would be sharing content to and directing people to and from these regions would go a long way towards building out the state operation as well. But we'll look at it. We'll look at what that actually looks like in another conversation. it isn't too hard. It isn't too hard to do. Okay. Did you have dinner?
That was a really weird question to ask.
Well, I'm finished talking about. I've gone through the. I really was going to try and stick to parliamentary procedure. I have a PDF right here in front of me, and it just kind of went so completely informal with it. But we got through all of the business that I wanted to vote or discuss for today. So I wanted to then talk a little bit about the campaign and the more issue-based stuff.
Could we just for a second?
Yeah.
As soon as you said parliamentary, the first one that popped in my head was that was one of the last lines at the end of Too Long Food. Thanks for everything, Julian Mark.
That's a good move.
I would like to say something about those founding fathers. They did have fabulous wigs.
What do we want to hold ourselves accountable to for next time we meet?
Okay.
Before we start talking about some of the updates.
Well, I'm gonna maybe brainstorm as to what a good another good location comparable to this might be, that would be optimized for getting the most people to come. This is a fun neighborhood, and it's a safe neighborhood, but it's about 3 blocks away from a less fun neighborhood. So that kind of stuff does factor into getting people in here. But I like this space a lot. And you know, just having a quiet space as opposed to. I'm gonna mute you for a second, buddy. Where we can plug in and talk. If we met at the Starbucks, I would really be. My ADD would be going even more intense.
There's some places that have like side rooms that might be welcome to that if we wanted to buy a drink there or like a sandwich or something like that. So that might be.
That's an excellent alternative to a study room like this. And
anytime you get food involved, people interested, right?
Right. Another thing too is let's use the Facebook page and invite people to nominate places to be. And
That would
maybe
be
that could
great.
also
That's
get
an
some
excellent
involvement from others as well at the same time.
let's plan on tentatively meeting back here in 2 weeks with the possibility of I'll do that right away with the possibility of a location to be determined.
Okay.
So
That would be good.
is everybody who is on the board or planning to attend okay with meeting at around this time next Wednesday, or would there be a day that you would prefer?
Next Wednesday or 2 Wednesdays?
Sorry, yes, 2 Wednesdays.
Yeah.
I've actually, I have a coaching appointment that day.
Oh, okay.
So.
Is there a day of the week that you like?
No, just go without me. It's fine.
Okay. We'll
What day is that? You've got my phone, so I
Yeah, I'm
do.
just digging for my calendar actually.
It's driving me crazy. I'm like, oh.
So that'd be the 26th.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. That would be Wednesday the 26th.
I won't be here either.
Oh, you'll be in
I've
San
got
Francisco.
Yeah, I've got a conference in, so.
Oh,
Okay.
nice.
What is the date range for that?
The 20th through the 27th. I think it's like that entire week.
Okay. And you're probably going to be really tired to do it on that Friday. Okay. Well.
I mean, I might be able to do it that Friday, but I wouldn't be able to do it that Wednesday.
Okay. How is Friday the 28th?
Yeah, Fridays can be.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
going to say Fridays can be tough though.
Oh yeah, it's a little tough to get people.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
we'd be better off on a Wednesday, so we might be better to do the 19th and then
One
start
second.
staggering out 2 weeks.
Okay.
What do you think? What's today's the 12th. You mean like meet next
Yeah, so
week?
meet next Wednesday and then go 2 weeks from then.
Okay, I'm not invested in meeting specifically on Wednesdays. I like meeting here on Wednesdays, because the study rooms aren't too busy.
I think I have an engagement that.
Hey, can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, my work split schedule right now is Wednesday night through basically Sunday morning.
Okay. So you would prefer to maybe meet a little earlier in the week?
If it's more, if it sounds like Wednesday is kind of a toss up for most people. If Monday night, Tuesday night, or something like that, at that point I can travel down and be there in person. So I mean that would help me, but I'm not going to put anybody else out. I can still do this phone thing.
I think Tuesday would be another good option.
Whatever you want to do, we'll make it work. Tuesday. So do you want to plan on
Tuesday the 18th?
this coming Tuesday, since Stacy's going to be gone? Does that work for you guys?
Right.
Yeah, it works for me.
Okay, that's 6 days from now.
It'll give you enough time to get your bylaws and the positions and
Yes.
the duties and stuff ready.
Okay. 6. That's the 17th. The 18th.
Hope it's the 18th, yeah.
Okay. Let's go ahead and put up an event reminder on that one so that other people can see and possibly maybe show up and listen.
Okay.
What time would that
And if
be?
we're meeting here, we have to meet. There's one day when they may be open a little later, but we have to basically meet at around this time, between 6 and 7.
Why don't you
or
put
we
it
could
on
meet
Facebook?
We could certainly meet earlier, but I don't want to start to get into.
Yeah, I think 5:30 is about as early as I could do.
Okay.
And promise to be here.
Yes.
So let's say subject to a slight move one way or the other, that we'll plan on meeting at 5:30 on Tuesday the 18th.
Sounds good.
And is that's a pretty good time for you as well, Anthony?
I'll make it.
Okay, cool. Excellent. And that will we can leave it an open question as to whether that's also an open one or a board meeting for now. I really like your idea, David, of nominating a location. So for if probably not for Tuesday, but I'll put that out there
All right.
and see what anybody has to say.
Because I'm hoping if people nominate, then they'll show up.
That's what I'm thinking.
Right.
Yeah. Or
You have some
even
fire.
better, we end up sitting in someone's jacuzzi.
Ooh, now you're talking.
That's how you start revolution.
It's true.
I have a weakness for also the primitive hot springs. Obsession with primitive hot springs. They just rebuilt Castle Hot Springs. This famous Rockefeller resort.
Is that the one up north of town?
Yeah.
I've seen the sign, but I've never been there. Yeah.
For 20 odd years, it was a primitive hot springs where people would just go take their dog,
Cool.
just sit there for an hour. And now they build it out as a nice resort with a nice spa, and they just opened sometime around December. I never got a chance to go up when they were a primitive hot spring, and
Susan, we may have to, do an advanced scouting.
Yeah, we should do that.
Somebody say north, how far north?
let me know how it
It's
is.
Castle
like going
Hot
towards
Spring.
Lake Pleasant out that
Yeah.
way.
Oh, okay,
It's not too bad.
right.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not
not
like
too far.
Flagstaff or
Right.
something.
Yeah.
No.
There's another one that I like. It's a little more out toward where Gennady is, but it's a little more in the center of the state. It's
I
called
know exactly the one you're talking about.
Alkaline Hot Springs.
Yeah, that's the one where you have to, as you're hiking the trail, it's all key gravel on the trail from a dried up riverbed, and then you gotta climb up this awkward iron ladder.
No, I'd like to check that one out though. This one's
that one's super cool.
This one's a little more mundane. It's sort of in the middle of the sort of desert, and it used to be this sort of roadhouse that had as a feature of this roadhouse this outdoor sort of jacuzzi that was just a hot spring. A couple of these.
Oh, no, I heard of this one.
Yeah, this one is pretty cool because somebody could just pick it up for a song and build a H+ camp or something. I think the guy I know a guy who knows the owner, and I think it's literally would cost almost nothing to buy. It's it's close to this town. It's close to the property values are not particularly high there. I don't want to be bad mouthing a town. Yeah, I love that place. I went there a few times. Yeah, there's a lot of these places sprinkled around the western U.S. Pretty neat.
So let's see. Just so I can make sure I've been catching up, because I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing.
Yes.
Some of the discussion. So Stacy is staying on board as party secretary.
Stacy is going to continue in her role as acting secretary.
Intern.
Acting secretary.
Acting
okay.
in.
Acting interim secretary.
That's AI. That's pretty futuristic.
Very nice. And we have a new treasurer in David Schumacher,
Congratulations,
And-
David.
and these other roles are going to remain the same. And I really think that you should continue in your role as vice chair, as well as being the chair of the Flagstaff Transhumanist Party, particularly as you have some potential members and activity up there. But
I will.
Yeah, cool.
I will.
We could always bring them in by like a Zoom meeting or something like that.
Yeah.
If we
Yeah.
could do that.
Yeah, and the Wi-Fi here is reliable enough for that. It does time out on occasion, but I don't think it would be a problem. That's a good idea. That'll make maybe next time as we're setting this up to stream, we can have a master shot so people aren't just watching the Benzo show. Excellent. This concludes the first official board meeting of the Arizona Transhumanist Party, and great stuff. Thank you guys. What are some issue stuff we want to talk about? What's in the news, Anthony?
Well, funny you asked that. It's scrolling through newsfeed.
Now you have to continue
So
taking
some of the, obviously, we have Alcor in Prescott, which is Max and Natasha's brainchild, cryopreservation. There's also a number, as you guys, I'm sure you can attest to, there's also a number of biotech opportunities in the Phoenix area. For some reason, all of the TV shows that show all of these things happening in the deserts of Arizona were actually right.
Yeah, we're in a pretty good place. And Alcor is a very august business, closely connected to a lot of transhumanists.
Let me jump in full disclosure. I'm a full Alcor member, signed
Yes.
up for cryonics, and so is Susan.
Congratulations.
Excellent. Well, we've been talking about Alcor in the context of our HSA discussion.
David?
Because Alcor, not everybody might be familiar. Even people who are familiar with Alcor, they might not know that Alcor has a legal fund, which is devoted to defending its existence against IV trolls and potential. It is very important for Alcor that they remain solvent, so they have a rather robust legal fund, and. NAI and I have been working quite a bit with this HSA program, a health sharing account program for transhumanists that would allow that would allow people in this community to have a little more choice as to how public health resources devoted to them are allocated towards the preservation of longevity and overall
Correct.
health.
If I could jump in with a couple of...
Please do, but I might repeat you a little bit for the camera.
Yeah, no problem. So to put that into perspective, if you currently have private insurance through an employer or some other means, you would also be able to, just like a health savings account, have this on the side. So if you were in a situation where you could have treatment A, which is covered by your insurance, or treatment B, which is viable but not covered by your insurance, you would at least have some sort of a fund that you could utilize to leverage towards treatment B.
So if anybody,
And maintain that choice in your life. And it would operate similarly to your common HSA, your health savings account, which currently only really covers the extraneous medical bills that are accompanied with treatment, like co-pays and things like that. You can use your health savings account that way. But we've also talked about, and we're not sure if this is going to be the right way to go, but we've also talked about something similar to a Medi-Share type plan, where if religious organizations can leverage this type of activity to provide healthcare that's within the keepings of their philosophy, why can't we? And with a couple of different political activities that we've had, for better or for worse, the ACA has been changed dramatically this year with fundings and defundings and certain repeals. But also there's been the Right to Try bill, which is a national bill that makes it legal and more attainable for a person to engage in an experimental treatment that has a reasonable chance of making a difference in their life.
yeah,
What's
I
the
want to
name of
clarify
that?
that point for the camera. That's Medi-Share, like Medicare, but with an SH. And I want to clarify a point about that. Whatever, for the camera, whatever failings might be there might be in that, this deregulation of the ACA would allow for transhumanists to set up these HSAs without declaring themselves to be persons of faith.
Right.
And that's, yes.
In most legal cases where a argument of religion has come up, it ultimately comes down to religion and philosophy. And given that we are engaged in a philosophy that, albeit based on science, we may have an argument there. But that's something that I would have to defer to somebody who's far more of a legal expert than I am. But it would allow us to pool resources, make investments to help grow our resource pool, things like that, for the sole purpose of being able to provide more advanced care, either as a supplement to existing insurance options, or as a replacement for, at some point in the future, when it becomes more robust. So,
But
these are things that would shore up our philosophy, sort of putting our money where our mouth is.
Yes, yes. And this is a kind of thing that ultimately national health services of developed countries, I think, should have, which is why we also discussed a concurrent organization that would be a legal fund, which is what the Alcor discussion brought to mind. I had something else I was going to say about what you were just describing. But I think that the legalities of this, these are more discrete search terms. As much as enlisting the help of legal minds, we might also list the help of people who are business development virtuosos or grant writing virtuosos to the end of building out this Medi-Share style program, which we don't have a working title for at this point.
Agreed.
Yeah. So we'd want to talk about that too. We need a good title. Yeah. There were a couple of other things that we wanted to maybe touch upon from the press update that we had. Because I can maybe edit this into something a little cleaner than the current update that Gennady has. We had the Medi-Share thing on the press update. We had ties to other political organizations. some of which I've described just in the last few days for our campaign. What was the third thing on that press update? Do you recall?
Off the top of my head, no. I'm away from my computer at the moment.
Okay.
Let me get back to it.
Don't worry too much about it. It was a less specific of the three, as I recall. Oh yeah, it was just the existence of the the third thing was just the existence and promotion of the Futurist New Deal, and towards bringing people into this organization. Are there any particular points of the Futurist New Deal that we should briefly discuss that we hadn't touched upon in other forums?
Is everybody clear on what we're trying to accomplish with the UBI and why we're pushing the direction we are?
Well, I'm a big fan of UBI, but I don't know specifically. I can't specifically answer that question. I could answer it from the Andrew Yang point of view, or it may be my own point of view. But I would assume the Transhumanist Party point of view on that probably overlaps considerably.
Well, Anthony and I can both answer this question. Our UBI is very much a continuation of the UBI proposed by Zoltan Istvan in 2016, which is a middle class UBI, and like Zoltan Istvan's, it is a $52,000 a year payout to adults, and ours is also funded in a rather similar way to his. We have a pretty specific set of tax policies in the Futurist New Deal, but one other thing that's continued from Zoltan Istvan's platform is funding this UBI through the leasing of federal lands in a very specific and rather strict set of circumstances, but across quite a lot of physical space. Would you care to comment on any of that, Anthony?
Yeah. So I think the prevailing difference between our UBI plan and some of the others that have thrown out there that we're actually thinking about how it's going to be funded is in what stages and steps and so on and so forth. There's a lot of promises out there without a lot of planning. Now, Andrew Yang's proposal is nearly a carbon copy of the Canadian model, and there's nothing wrong with that. They have a lot of experience with it. There's just a couple of key terms that are changed, and a couple of things that are more adapted to the American tax code and obviously the Canadian tax code. Rachel Haywire, I believe, pretty much just doubled back, called it good. What we're talking about is a grown-up living wage. We're talking about a system whereby every adult American citizen of the United States is entitled to a professional living. And the reason we're doing that is in order to be able to comfortably phase people through the automation woes as our manufacturing base and everything expands.
Right.
And we need that manufacturing base to expand because we need to bolster our GDP, make other countries our customers as far as manufacturing facilities and locations are available, and in that way also continue to fund the UBI. So in the terms of taking one step at a time, it starts with tax reform and it starts with entitlement program reform. So 2.1 trillion of the cost of the UBI can be funded just by replacing the existing programs like SSDI, standard Social Security retirement, food stamps, housing assistance, any kind of welfare program.
Yeah, and by replacing, we should be clear that this is not going to be a reduction in actual benefits to anyone.
Yeah, that's what I was getting to.
It's just a reconfiguration of the way of these organizations.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead, please.
Okay. I was going to say by replacing these, we're actually giving something better. To give you an example, my late wife was through the had her benefits through the VA as a prior service number, and the most that any fully disabled veteran is going to get The same goes for any of the other SSDI, SSI, retirement, any of the other programs. We're doing much better with that. So by replacing those instead of just adding to it, which is where Andrew Yang's systems and so many other people's systems have fallen short, is they're just adding another card to this house of cards that's doomed to crumble under its own weight. Well, we need to replace the bad cards. And so in doing so, we take care of 2.1 trillion of that cost right off the bat. The next phase is sane, logical, rational tax reforms that make the American citizen more the beneficiary of the tax system rather than, megacorps and fat politicians sitting there collecting millions of dollars somehow, even though the salaries are not capped. We've taken care of that, and then the next step is where we get into the federal land lease. Subaru, Indiana has a manufacturing system model where it is a zero landfill, zero pollution, even zero sound pollution manufacturing facility that's not entirely automated, but very heavily automated. So they're still employing human labor, and they still manage to make a minuscule carbon footprint, and the entire area in which they're situated is classified as a nature preserve. So they did this as a publicity stunt to keep, aging hippies buying their product, and it helped them. It worked. But the key is that they set a precedent there in their manufacturing facility design. We can take some of the open vacant, so no clear cutting necessary, open vacant sections of American Park Service and lease it to a company like that, say a 100-year land lease. Given the proviso that they do no harm, and so long as they follow this model or better, now that it's 2019 and that came out back at I think it was 2011. So long as they follow that model or better, they're able to continue to use that land and generate income for the American public. And we can say the same thing to say that's a Japanese manufacturer. We can say the same thing to Kia. We can say the same thing to say the same thing to any of the other manufacturers. We could get Kyocera making their phones on U.S. soil if we did it that way as well. But again, we turn the rest of the world into our customer and pay the American citizen dividends. That's really what it is ultimately. Once we get to that phase where we take Milton Nietsman's model and kind of put it into application, what we're doing is we're creating dividends for the American citizen, and that way taking the labor burden off of the American citizen and freeing up room for further innovation and automation that just cranks out more and better products for the rest of the world who want to be our customer. And that's the goal.
Yes, and an excellent goal. And reasonable people might differ as to the need for humane economic policies versus industry-focused techno-progress, but certainly within this community, yes, and within this community, you're not going to find within the transhumanist community, you're not going to find too many people who are willing to disregard the latter. And so, even though we are, this is effectively a reform ticket, we really need to be mindful of those things, just in the way that we need to be mindful of people's interest in deregulation in biomedicine that would allow for more rapid changes in moves towards a life extension.
I'll have to find out just a quick comment.
I just want to say, Anthony, we have 15 minutes before we start to get kicked out of here. Officially, we have 20 minutes.
Real quick, just to answer that point. What we're basically talking about is leveraging the one in order to create the other. So we're leveraging one in order to create humane economic policy. Because right now we're dealing with a business and power structure that's so interconnected and interwoven that they'll never let it go. So we need to entice them into going away a little bit so that we here can live our lives.
Yeah, but those mechanisms that you're describing, they don't have real public support. They have to go away if the entire public just decides that they're unworthy to some degree.
Okay, but continue. I'm sorry.
No.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. No, and I think it's an important distinction about the UBI. Well, I did want to say something about the UBI, which is that I've read just about every stitch that's been written on Andrew Yang's platform, and it is a very fleshed out platform. And I do regard Andrew Yang as, I think, legitimately a transhumanist. And
I would agree.
And
he's our plan.
yes, but I would urge anyone connected to or interested in the Yang campaign, or connected to or interested in the Haywire campaign, to maybe reach out to us, give us a call for this next meeting. I'd really like to hear more about Rachel Haywire's UBI in terms of the tax particulars. So I wanted to throw that out there, and also just say what you were saying about the stopgap that is larger sort of theory versus the smaller, more durable UBI. I think that's a controversial but important distinction. I don't view a $52,000 UBI as something that has a ticking clock exactly, but as techno-optimists,
continue to be adjusted for inflation.
right, and also as techno-optimists, we have a great deal of variation in the theories as to what our economy might look like in a few years as full automation and quasi-singularitarian effects might begin to change the nature of even the nature of currency itself. But we have a duty right now to strengthen the U.S. middle class with these humane economic policies, no matter what we believe the future holds in these terms. That's excellent. We didn't talk too much about our e-voting. We talked about it a little bit. We didn't talk at all about our healthcare plan, but that's probably the least controversial thing in some ways on that we would discuss.
Yeah, and that's what we did talk about is more what we can do here at our level in Arizona at a grassroots level. We can get more into the national stuff maybe at another meeting.
Yes, and we really should tend to focus on these local issues and concerns and strategies for our organization in these meetings as much as possible.
You're almost done.
Sorry. We're gonna wrap it up, I guess.
Okay.
We Stacy and I both have dogs who are about to go nuts.
Explode.
I had to go chasing after mine at the beginning of this week. I understand.
Okay, this concludes the inaugural meeting of the Arizona Transhumanist Party. I want to thank Susan, David, Stacy, Anthony for joining us and working through some of these particulars. And thank you all for watching. We'll see you next week.